absolutely, if that's darts, I'm off ski. Simple as that. If that's how darts is going and that's how it gets played now.
Gary Anderson is one of the most naturally gifted players darts has ever seen, but behind the smooth throw and calm stance is a man who absolutely cannot stand mind games, distractions, or players who mess with the spirit of the game. Over the years, he's blown up on stage, stormed out of interviews, and even accused opponents of cheating in bizarre ways. And when he snaps, everyone notices. From foul-smelling matches to players who push his limits, these are the 6 moments where Gary Anderson just couldn't take it anymore. It was supposed to be a routine second-round match, but by the time Gary Anderson walked off stage after facing Mensah Suljovic at the 2020 World Championship, he wasn't relieved, he was livid. Suljovic, notorious for his painfully slow pace, turned what should have been a fast-flowing match into a stop-start nightmare. From the first leg, Anderson's frustration was visible, pacing around, arms folded, checking the scoreboard with disbelief as Suljovic dragged out every moment. But it wasn't just the throwing speed that drove him mad. What really set Anderson off happened before the first dart was even thrown. Suljovic deliberately walked to the wrong table on stage during the walk-on, the table designated for Anderson. It forced the officials to intervene and redirect him. To most viewers, it seemed like an awkward mix-up, but to Anderson, it was a calculated mind game designed to rattle him before the match even began. Afterwards, Anderson unleashed. "If this is what darts is becoming, I'm done," he said bluntly. He accused Suljovic of dragging the game down with unnecessary antics and slow play, calling it pathetic. He didn't just feel annoyed, he felt disrespected. Suljovic defended himself, claiming it was all part of his natural rhythm and that the table incident was a misunderstanding. But Anderson wasn't buying it. The slow pace, the awkward walk-on, the drawn-out throws, to him, it was all part of a deliberate effort to break his focus. The match itself ended in a win for Anderson, but there was no joy in it. He left the stage questioning whether darts was losing its character and whether players like Suljovic were changing the game for the worse. Anderson's always been quick to speak his mind, especially when he thinks the sport is being bent out of shape. But this clash with Suljovic was more than frustration, it was a warning shot, and it wouldn't be the last. Some matches are remembered for brilliant finishes, others are remembered for fireworks, and this one had both. The 2018 Grand Slam of Darts final between Gary Anderson and Gerwyn Price quickly turned into one of the most hostile and controversial matches the sport has ever seen. From the very first leg, there was tension. Gerwyn Price came out with his usual aggression, big reactions, pumped fists, long stares, and loud roars after winning legs. To some, it's charisma. To Anderson, it was blatant intimidation. As the match went on, Price kept pushing the envelope. He walked slowly to the oche, stared down Anderson, shouted after routine shots, and celebrated like every leg was a championship win. Anderson, who's from the old school throw and go style, wasn't having it. The tension was boiling until it finally erupted. Mid-match, after another overly aggressive celebration from Price, Anderson lost it. The two got in each other's faces and Anderson shoved Price on stage. Referees had to separate them as the crowd erupted with boos and cheers. It was chaos, unfiltered, raw, and completely out of character for Anderson. After the match, which Price won 16-13, Anderson didn't hold back in the post-game interviews. He accused Price of trying to wind him up on purpose, calling his behavior disgusting and a joke. He said the constant celebrations and pacing were part of a calculated plan to break his concentration. Price, on the other hand, brushed it off, claiming he was just playing with passion. But the Darts Regulation Authority didn't see it that way. They hit Price with a record fine for gamesmanship and bringing the game into disrepute, over £20,000. Anderson was also warned, though his role was considered a reaction, not provocation. The clash became one of the most talked about incidents in darts history. Fans were divided. Some backed Anderson, saying Price crossed the line. Others believed Anderson had lost his cool and couldn't handle a new generation of intensity. But regardless of which side you were on, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a darts match, it was a full-blown psychological war. And for Gary Anderson, it marked the moment he went from competitor to combatant. There are strange moments in every sport, but very few compared to what happened on a cold November night at the 2018 Grand Slam of Darts. Gary Anderson had just won his match against Dutch player Wesley Harms when something unexpected and frankly ridiculous stole the headlines. After the match, Harms told reporters that something distracted him on stage, a horrible, lingering smell. He hinted that it came from Anderson, saying the foul stench broke his focus. The implication was clear. Anderson had let one go mid-match to throw him off his game. Anderson, known for his short temper and no-nonsense attitude, didn't take it lying down. He burst into laughter during his own interview, calling the accusation fantasy. But then he fired back, "I thought it was him. It definitely came from that side of the stage. Don't blame me."
You can put your finger up the arse, there'll be no smell there. I thought he had shit, and I went, that's dirty. It was bad.
It was bad?
It was bad. There was a stink. I thought it was him. And he started playing better. I went, must have needed to get some wind out.
Yeah. And he thought it was you?
Oh no, hands up. Swear on my kid's life. So help me God. Nothing crossed.
But it was smelly anyway?
It was smelly.
The moment was surreal. Two professional athletes standing in front of the world arguing over who passed gas during a televised match. Social media exploded. Fans dubbed it Fartgate. Memes were everywhere. For a moment, darts was trending, not for a 9-darter or a title upset, but because two top players were blaming each other for breaking wind. While it sounds like comedy, Anderson still viewed it through the lens of respect and professionalism. He felt insulted. To him, it wasn't just a joke, it was an attempt to undermine his image and turn the crowd against him. Even in the most bizarre setting, Anderson couldn't stand being accused of unsportsmanlike behavior. It may have been the strangest controversy of his career, but it still fit a pattern. When Gary Anderson feels something's unfair, no matter how weird, he's not going to laugh it off and move on. He's going to speak out. And if you thought that was odd, wait until you hear what happened when Anderson thought a rival commentator was turning fans against him. When two legends like Gary Anderson and Raymond van Barneveld step up to the Oki, fans expect fireworks, but not like this. In a 2015 Premier League showdown, the tension wasn't about missed doubles or big checkouts, it was about one moment that Anderson saw as pure disrespect. During a tightly contested leg, Van Barneveld walked past Anderson just as he was lining up to throw. To most people watching, it may have looked like nothing, a quick crossover, a split-second misstep. But for Anderson, it was deliberate. He immediately stepped back from the Oki, clearly irritated, and glared across the stage. After the match, Anderson didn't bite his tongue. He claimed Van Barneveld had intentionally tried to put him off, breaking an unwritten rule of darts etiquette: never walk behind or past a player mid-throw. He knew exactly what he was doing, Anderson insisted. You don't walk past someone when they're throwing darts, especially not at this level. Van Barneveld, one of the sport's most respected figures, was stunned by the accusation. He fired back in interviews, saying the idea he'd cheat or play dirty was disgusting. He insisted it was an accident, nothing more. The darts world split. Some sided with Anderson, saying even a small move like that can rattle a player's rhythm. Others thought Anderson was being overly sensitive, or worse, making excuses for a shaky performance. But this incident wasn't really about Barney, it was about Anderson's core belief that darts should be played with mutual respect, free of tricks, distractions, or cheap shots. And when he feels that code is broken, even by a legend, he'll call it out, no matter the backlash. For Anderson, it's never been about fame or image. It's about defending the integrity of the game. And that mindset would lead him into even more heated confrontations, including one with someone who wasn't even holding a dart. When Gary Anderson left the stage after that painfully slow, tension-filled match with Mensur Suljovic at the 2020 World Championship, he wasn't just frustrated with his opponent, he was furious with what was being said off stage, especially by one voice in the commentary box, Wayne Mardle. Mardle, a former pro and well-known pundit, had made a comment during the match suggesting that if a player's rhythm is being affected by slow play, the crowd should start calling it out. He implied that fans might have to make it uncomfortable for the slow player so the pace picks up. It was a throwaway line, one of dozens pundits toss out during long matches. But Anderson took it personally. He didn't wait for a post-match press conference to respond. Instead, he fired back directly in the TV interview, his face stone cold. What a numpty, Anderson snapped, mocking Mardle's suggestion that fans should intervene. It's pathetic, absolutely pathetic. He doubled down, saying commentators like Mardle had no clue what it's like to be under pressure in a real match anymore, and that encouraging the crowd to get involved crossed the line. To Anderson, it wasn't just bad commentary, it was dangerous. A license for fans to heckle and interfere with the match. The moment went viral in darts circles. Mardle stayed relatively quiet on the issue, but fans took sides.
That's great for television, isn't it? That's absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, I play darts. If I get beat, listen mate, well done. Play brilliant. But let darts be darts how it used to be.
You talked in your post-match that if it didn't change, you'd walk away. Was that a serious threat?
Well, I probably would have done until Harrington piped up. now I'm going to play. I'm going to play for a long time. You know, I have a year or 2 years left, not now. If I can make it till I'm 90, just to make sure I cheese them off, I'll be playing till I'm 90.
Some thought Anderson had overreacted, letting off steam and deflecting from his own frustration. Others saw his point. If the crowd starts controlling the pace, where does it stop? What's clear is that Anderson doesn't just take issue with players, he has no patience for anyone who disrespects the game, even from the comfort of a commentary booth. In his mind, if you're not throwing darts under the lights, you don't get to tell people how to play. And as we'll see in our final section, Anderson's fury doesn't stop at accusations or words. Sometimes it turns into a full-on confrontation. By the time Gary Anderson and Daryl Gurney met in the quarterfinals of the 2018 World Grand Prix, tensions were already simmering beneath the surface. What followed wasn't just a one-sided defeat, it was a post-match explosion that made headlines around the darts world. Gurney had dominated the match from start to finish, winning 3-0 in the whitewash. But when the final dart landed and both players met at the oche for the traditional handshake, things went sideways. Anderson appeared to mutter something as he reached out, and Gurney instantly snapped, telling Anderson to pass off right there on stage. The crowd, confused at first, started buzzing as the cameras caught the brief but explosive exchange. In the interviews that followed, Anderson claimed Gurney had been mumbling behind him during the match, something Anderson interpreted as deliberate distraction. To him, it was yet another example of underhanded gamesmanship. Gurney didn't stay quiet. He hit back hard, denying the claim and saying Anderson was just upset he lost. "I did nothing wrong," he said. "I was matching his pace. He just doesn't like being beaten like that." What made the moment so intense wasn't just the words, it was the raw energy behind them. Anderson didn't accuse Gurney in a composed, offhand way. He was visibly fired up, red-faced, shaking his head, refusing to let it go. Gurney, just as fired up, threw it right back. Anderson has always been sensitive to anything that disrupts his rhythm on stage. Even subtle noises or pacing differences can trigger him if he thinks it's intentional. In this case, whether Gurney meant to distract or not didn't matter. Anderson believed he did, and that was enough. The altercation became one of the most uncomfortable handshakes in darts history, and it added one more name to the long list of players who have clashed with Anderson when the pressure peaks. Gary Anderson isn't just a two-time world champion, he's one of the most fiery, outspoken figures in darts history. He plays with instinct, speaks with emotion, and refuses to play along when he thinks the game is being disrespected. From slow play and sneaky tactics to bad commentary and awkward handshakes, Anderson has clashed with players, pundits, and even the crowd. But these outbursts aren't just about anger, they're about principle. In his mind, darts was built on respect, rhythm, and fair play. And every time someone crosses that line, he lets them know, loud and clear. Some fans love his honesty, others say he needs to calm down. But whether you see him as a defender of tradition or just a guy with a short fuse, one thing's for sure. When Gary Anderson snaps, the whole darts world pays attention.